Liam and Emily were the couple everyone admired. They had been together for 3 years, and their relationship always seemed strong, filled with adventure and joy. They shared countless photos on social media, pictures from hiking trips, cozy movie nights, and beach vacations. Their friends called them relationship goals. On the surface, they were perfect. Liam worked as a mechanic in a small auto shop, known in the neighborhood for his friendly attitude and solid skills. Emily was a university student studying psychology, full of ambition and energy. People who knew them believed they would eventually get married, settle down, and build a beautiful life together. There were no public signs of trouble. That summer, their social media posts became more frequent. They were often seen at local cafes, city parks, and especially at their favorite lake, where they would spend hours swimming and relaxing. Emily's final post showed a sunny afternoon at the lake. Her caption was simple: "Best day of my life." Friends liked the post, some even commenting about how happy she looked. No one could have imagined that this would be her last public appearance. Later that evening, around 7 p.m., emergency services received a frantic call from Liam. His voice was shaky and panicked as he told the dispatcher that Emily had suddenly collapsed at his house. He said she was not breathing, and he didn't know what had happened. Paramedics rushed to the scene. When they arrived, Emily was lying lifeless on the living room floor. Liam appeared devastated, pacing back and forth, tears streaming down his face. He told paramedics they had spent the entire day together. They watched movies, had lunch, and just relaxed. Everything seemed perfectly normal until, according to him, Emily suddenly complained of feeling dizzy and collapsed without warning. Paramedics tried to revive her, but it was too late. Emily was declared dead at the scene. It was a tragic moment that left everyone shocked. Liam was cooperative, answering all the police questions. He said they had been together in his house for almost 6 hours that day, from around noon until the emergency call in the evening. He explained that they spent most of that time just talking and enjoying each other's company. The police initially treated the situation as an unexpected medical event, possibly a sudden heart problem or allergic reaction. There was no immediate sign of foul play. Liam appeared completely heartbroken. He kept telling the officers that he had no idea what went wrong. Emily was perfectly fine just minutes before she collapsed. To everyone around him, Liam looked like a man in deep grief, a boyfriend who had just lost the love of his life. As the news spread, people in the community were in disbelief. Friends and neighbors came forward to comfort Liam. Social media was filled with posts expressing sorrow for Emily's sudden death. People shared their memories, some recalling her kindness, others talking about her bright future. Emily's family was devastated. They had always liked Liam, trusting him with their daughter. They could not understand how such a healthy, vibrant young woman could die without warning. However, the case started to take a different turn when the medical examiner's initial report arrived. Emily had no visible injuries. There were no signs of trauma or physical harm, but the toxicology test revealed something unusual. Emily's system contained a dangerous substance, one that is not normally found in the body. The levels were high enough to cause death. The discovery raised immediate questions. How did this poison enter her system? Was it an accident? Did Emily take it herself? Or did someone else give it to her? The police re-examined Liam's house carefully. They noticed 2 drinking glasses on the coffee table, both half full. There was leftover food on the kitchen counter, which Liam said they had shared. Nothing appeared obviously suspicious, but when they searched under the sink, they found a small bottle with a faded label. It contained traces of the same toxic substance found in Emily's body. Liam seemed surprised when the bottle was shown. To him, he insisted he had never seen it before and suggested maybe Emily brought it with her. This explanation did not sit well with investigators. Emily's family denied any possibility that she would bring something dangerous into Liam's house. She had made plans for the coming week and had recently talked about a future trip with her friends. Nothing about her behavior suggested she would harm herself. Investigators grew more curious about the 6 hours Liam and Emily had spent together. Liam said they stayed at home the entire time. They watched TV, ate lunch, and had no visitors. He repeated that Emily was perfectly fine until the last few minutes. But something about his story didn't feel right to the police. If the poison was inside the house, and Emily had been healthy before, how did it get into her system without Liam noticing? And why was Liam so sure that nothing unusual happened during those 6 hours? The police decided to request security. Camera footage from nearby houses and street cameras to confirm Liam's timeline. They also began to carefully track Emily's phone activity, social media posts, and her movements before she arrived at Liam's house. Slowly, doubts began to grow around Liam's story. Friends and family of Emily cooperated fully with the investigation. They described her as someone who was cautious and not the type to take unknown substances. She was looking forward to finishing her studies and had made exciting plans for the future. The idea that she would accidentally poison herself or choose to end her life made no sense to anyone who knew her. While the town mourned her death, the police quietly started piecing together a story that pointed in a completely different direction. They were beginning to believe that the 6 hours Liam spent with Emily that day might not have been as peaceful and ordinary as he claimed. Hidden beneath his grief could be a much darker truth. The toxicology report was the first sign that Emily's death was no accident. The substance found in her body was a rare chemical, not something commonly found in households. It was a slow-acting poison, taking several hours to fully affect the victim, which perfectly matched the timeline Liam had provided. This raised serious questions. How did such a substance end up in her system if they were simply spending a quiet day at home? The detectives went back to Liam's house for a more thorough search. They collected every item that could have come into contact with food or drinks. They sent the leftover food, the 2 glasses, and even utensils to the lab. They also took the small bottle from under the sink for detailed testing. Liam had seemed cooperative at first, but his calm demeanor slowly started to crack as investigators pressed him for more details. His story was always the same. They had spent 6 hours together, everything was fine, and then she just collapsed. But the investigators began to notice that Liam seemed to carefully avoid talking about what they ate and drank in detail. He would say things like, "just the usual stuff," or "I don't remember exactly." The detectives decided to dig deeper into Emily's activities before that day. They traced her phone history, recent purchases and messages. Everything pointed to a young woman who was looking forward to life. She had plans to meet her friends the following day and had just ordered a new set of books online. Her text to friends showed excitement about her upcoming exams and summer break. There was No trace of stress, depression, or anything that would suggest she had taken the poison herself. This piece of information further weakened Liam's claim that Emily might have brought the poison with her. Detectives began reviewing surveillance footage from the streets surrounding Liam's house. They discovered Emily's arrival at noon, exactly as Liam had said. However, what caught their attention was that around 2 p.m., Liam's car was seen leaving the driveway. It was gone for nearly 2 hours. Liam had not mentioned this. When questioned, he finally admitted he had gone out, saying he drove to get lunch from a nearby restaurant. But when detectives checked with the restaurant, there was no record of any purchase, no credit card activity, and no CCTV footage showing him entering. It appeared that Liam had lied about his movements during a critical part of the day. This new detail raised serious suspicion. Where had Liam gone during those missing hours? Investigators expanded their search and began checking garbage bins and dumpsters near his house. After days of searching, they found a black trash bag in a nearby dumpster. Inside were burnt pieces of paper, disposable gloves, and a partially melted container that matched the type used to store the poison. The gloves and container were sent to the lab, and soon it was confirmed that they had traces of the same toxic substance found in Emily's body. Now, the story Liam had told was starting to fall apart. The evidence suggested he had not only handled the poison, but had also tried to destroy the proof. Still, the detectives needed more to understand his motive. They started looking into Liam's financial background and personal life. That's when they found something shocking. Just 3 weeks before Emily's death, Liam had convinced her to sign a life insurance policy that listed him as the sole beneficiary. The policy was worth a significant amount of money, enough to clear Liam's debts and give him a fresh start. At first, it seemed odd that Emily would agree to such a thing, but friends later revealed that Liam had told Emily the policy was just a safety measure in case of an accident, something responsible couples do. Emily, trusting him, had gone along with it. Further investigation into Liam's financial history revealed he was drowning in debt. His auto repair shop had been losing money for months, and he was behind on mortgage payments. His car was also close to being repossessed. The money from the life insurance policy would have solved all his financial problems instantly. Detectives continued to search Liam's phone and social media accounts, hoping to uncover more. What they found added another layer of betrayal. Liam had been secretly involved with another woman. The messages between them were filled with excitement about starting a new life together. He had told her that soon he would be free, and that they could travel and build a future together. The timing of these messages matched perfectly with the days leading up to Emily's death. When police presented this evidence to Emily's family, they were shattered. They had trusted Liam completely. The idea that he had used Emily to escape his financial problems and move on with another woman was devastating. The evidence was building rapidly, painting a picture of cold calculation and deception. Despite everything, Liam maintained his innocence. He insisted Emily's death was a terrible accident. He claimed he never knew about the poison and suggested that maybe Emily had taken it without his knowledge. But the careful steps he had taken leaving the house during the crucial window of time, disposing of incriminating items, and lying about his whereabouts were impossible to ignore. As investigators pieced together the timeline, they realized that the 6 hours Liam claimed to have spent happily with Emily were likely a carefully constructed trap. The slow-acting poison would have taken hours to show symptoms, allowing Liam to be present the entire time while the substance quietly worked inside her body. By the time Emily felt dizzy and collapsed, it was already too late. Detectives built a solid case based on the evidence, the life insurance policy, the financial motive, the missing hours, the surveillance footage, the hidden bottle, the secret girlfriend, and the deliberate disposal of the gloves and container. Liam's carefully crafted story had started to crumble. What had once appeared to be a heartbreaking accident now looked like the perfect cover for premeditated murder. The investigation had exposed a much darker truth hiding behind Liam's display of grief and sorrow. Slowly, the police prepared to move toward an arrest, knowing that the person who claimed to love Emily the most had likely spent those final 6 hours, not cherishing her, but carefully watching her die. The missing hours in Liam's timeline became the most critical part of the investigation. Everything else pointed toward foul play, but those unaccounted 2 hours were where the real answers seemed to hide. Liam's story about going out for lunch had already fallen apart when no restaurant had any record of him. The police expanded their search radius, collecting surveillance footage from nearby stores, streets, and gas stations. They wanted to know exactly where Liam had gone during that window. After carefully reviewing multiple videos, detectives finally spotted his car at a remote hardware store on the edge of town. The timestamp matched the period he had been away from his house. This discovery was a turning point. When police contacted the store, they confirmed that Liam had made a cash purchase that day. The receipt listed gloves, lighter fluid, and garbage bags, the same items found later in the dumpster near his house. Liam had claimed to have been buying food for Emily, but instead, he had been out gathering items that could destroy evidence. Investigators now believed that Liam had already poisoned Emily by the time he left his house. The poison was slow-acting, giving him the confidence to step out and prepare for the cleanup. His plan appeared to be chillingly methodical. While analyzing the trash bag, forensic experts noticed the burnt papers had some parts still readable. One of the partially burned documents was connected to an online order for the same type of poison that killed Emily. The delivery address matched Liam's home. Further digging into his internet activity revealed that he had ordered the poison from an obscure website weeks before Emily's death. He had also searched topics like fastest undetectable poisons and how long before poison takes effect. Detectives realized that Liam had spent weeks planning the perfect crime, carefully timing everything to make Emily's death look like an accident or a mystery that could never be solved. But small details he had overlooked were now coming back to expose him. The investigators shifted their focus to the timeline inside the house. Liam had said he and Emily spent 6 hours together, doing ordinary things like watching movies and having lunch. But when forensic teams dusted the glasses for fingerprints, they found that Liam's fingerprints were only on one glass. Emily's prints were on the other, which was expected. But when they tested the contents of the glasses, the one Emily used contained trace amounts of the poison, while Liam's glass was clean. This suggested that the poison was administered directly to Emily's drink, not through shared food or utensils. The detectives also analyzed the leftover food. It showed no signs of contamination, which meant the poison wasn't mixed into the meal. Liam had carefully poisoned only Emily's drink, ensuring that he wouldn't be affected. This level of precision revealed just how far he had gone to make sure the plan would work. Meanwhile, Investigators continued to examine Liam's financial records and discovered that his debt was worse than initially thought. His shop was facing immediate foreclosure, and he was months behind on his bills. Without the life insurance payout, he would have likely lost everything within weeks. Liam's desperate financial condition added another layer to his motive. The more they uncovered, the clearer it became that Liam saw Emily not as his partner, but as his way out. Another discovery deepened the case. Police found that Liam had recently increased the life insurance policy's payout amount. The adjustment had been made just 2 weeks before Emily's death, with paperwork that showed he had convinced Emily to sign the changes during what he described as a routine update. Friends later told investigators that Emily had casually mentioned signing some documents for Liam, but had not paid much attention to them. She trusted him completely. As detectives pieced everything together, they built a detailed map of the day Emily died. She had arrived at Liam's house around noon, cheerful and unaware of the danger she was in. They likely sat together, ate lunch, and had drinks. At some point, Liam had slipped the poison into her glass, knowing it would take hours to fully affect her. Confident in the slow process, Liam then left the house, likely telling Emily he was going to pick up food. Instead, he drove to the hardware store to buy items to destroy evidence. He returned home, spent more time with her, and calmly waited as the poison took effect. When Emily started feeling dizzy and collapsed, Liam called emergency services. Pretending to be confused and devastated. It was a cruel plan, one that required patience and calculation. He had deliberately chosen a poison that would not act immediately, giving him a chance to craft the illusion of a peaceful day spent together. His tears and panic during the emergency call had been part of the performance. Investigators also revisited the messages Liam had exchanged with his secret girlfriend. In those messages, Liam had written that he would soon be free and that they would have the money to start a new life together. He had carefully avoided mentioning Emily by name, but the timing and context were undeniable. He was preparing for a future that no longer included Emily. When detectives finally arrested Liam, they had a solid body of evidence: the surveillance videos, the poisoned drink, the deleted search history, the trash bag filled with gloves and burned documents, the life insurance policy, and the hidden affair. Each piece told the story of a man who had slowly built a trap around someone who trusted him without question. Liam's carefully crafted timeline, where he had pretended to spend a loving 6 hours with Emily, now looked like a staged event designed to create confusion and distance himself from suspicion. But the details betrayed him. His lies unraveled, one by one, under the weight of the facts. What had initially appeared to be a tragic, unexplained death had turned into a complex case of premeditated murder. The 6 hours Liam spent with Emily that day were not hours of affection and joy. They were the carefully measured countdown to her death. And while he may have believed his plan was flawless, he could not account for every small detail. It was those overlooked pieces that ultimately told the real story. As the investigation moved closer to trial, the story took an even more shocking turn. Detectives had already gathered enough evidence to show that Liam had planned Emily's death carefully, but there were still unanswered questions about just how deeply he had gone to prepare for this crime. Investigators decided to review Liam's internet history from several months before the incident, hoping to find more about his state of mind and whether the murder had been a sudden decision or a long-planned event. What they found made the case even darker. Liam had been researching poisons and life insurance loopholes for over 6 months. He had read multiple online articles, visited obscure forums, and watched videos about how certain substances could kill slowly without immediate detection. His internet searches included specific questions, like how to administer poison without the victim noticing and how long the effects would take to show. The level of detail in his research showed that this was not a moment of desperation, but a calculated plan that he had been refining over time. Detectives also found a draft letter on Liam's laptop addressed to his secret girlfriend. In the letter, Liam explained that he was almost free from his complicated situation and that they would soon have enough money to leave everything behind. He described their future together in detailed travel plans, new cities to explore, and even ideas for starting a business together. The draft was never sent, but its content was damning. It painted a clear picture of his mindset and future intentions. When the police showed this letter to Emily's family, their grief turned into disbelief. The man they had welcomed into their home, the man who had shared family dinners and holidays, had spent months planning their daughter's death for money and a new life with someone else. The betrayal was beyond anything they could have imagined. As the court date approached, prosecutors built a timeline that connected all the dots. Liam had poisoned Emily's drink early in the afternoon, left to buy materials to destroy the evidence, returned home, and calmly spent the remaining hours by her side as the poison slowly took effect. The fact that he stayed with her, watched her suffer the early symptoms, and still continued with his plan made the case even more chilling. Investigators also uncovered another detail that strengthened the case against him. Liam's purchase of the poison had been made using a fake name and a prepaid card, but the delivery had still been sent to his home address. It was a mistake that showed he had tried to hide his tracks, but had not covered every step perfectly. This carelessness became another piece of the puzzle that prosecutors would later use to prove his guilt. Further forensic analysis confirmed that the gloves and the small plastic container found in the trash bag had not only traces of poison, but also bore Liam's DNA. The lighter fluid was used to burn papers that likely contained more detailed plans or online orders. But enough fragments remained to link the burnt documents back to Liam. Each new discovery added more weight to the growing mountain of evidence. Prosecutors argued that Liam's motive was not just money, but also his desire to escape the life he had built with Emily. His financial troubles, his failing business, and his secret relationship all pointed to a man who wanted to start over, but couldn't see a way out without eliminating Emily. He had carefully manipulated her into signing the life insurance documents and pretended to be the loving boyfriend. Until the very end. The defense team struggled to build a case that could explain Liam's actions. They argued that Emily might have consumed the poison on her own, that the life insurance policy was a normal decision for a couple, and that Liam's secret girlfriend was unrelated to Emily's death. They also claimed that the evidence found in the trash could have been planted or mistakenly connected to Liam. But none of their arguments were convincing enough to counter the strong, consistent evidence gathered by the investigators. Meanwhile, Liam remained silent about what really happened that day. He never admitted to poisoning Emily and refused to answer questions about his internet searches or the draft letter to his girlfriend. His refusal to cooperate made the prosecution's case stronger. The jury listened carefully as prosecutors detailed the timeline, showing exactly how Liam's carefully planned hours with Emily unfolded, step by step, from the first sip of her poisoned drink to her final moments on the living room floor. Liam's behavior during those final hours was perhaps the most horrifying part of the case. He spent 6 hours with Emily, watching her laugh, talk, and eventually grow weaker, all while knowing she was dying. He had prepared for it, he had expected it, and yet he sat calmly by her side, waiting for the poison to finish its work. His ability to remain composed and act as if nothing was wrong made the crime even more disturbing. It showed a coldness and patience that terrified both the investigators and the jury. The court also heard emotional testimony from Emily's family and friends. They spoke about her kindness, her love for life, and her dreams for the future. Their words painted a vivid picture of a young woman full of potential, someone who had trusted the wrong person without ever suspecting his true intentions. Throughout the trial, Liam showed little emotion. He remained quiet, sometimes nodding as evidence was presented, but he never showed genuine signs of grief or regret. His lack of response unsettled everyone in the courtroom, making it even harder for anyone to believe his claims of innocence. Final days of the trial focused on the question of intent. The jury had to decide whether this was truly an accident or a carefully designed murder. With the overwhelming evidence, surveillance videos, poisoned drink, destroyed items, internet searches, the unsigned draft letter, the secret affair, and the life insurance policy, it became increasingly difficult to believe Liam's version of the story. Liam's 6 hours with Emily, which he had first described as a simple, loving day spent together, were revealed to be the carefully timed window he needed to carry out his plan. His strategy depended on patience and precision. He waited until the poison worked, then played the role of a grieving boyfriend, all to create enough confusion to avoid immediate suspicion. But no plan is perfect. The smallest mistakes, the delivery address, the leftover poison, the overlooked surveillance cameras slowly came together to expose the truth he tried to bury. The case was no longer about doubt. It was now about how someone could stay so close to the person they loved while carefully watching them die. The final chapter of the case unfolded in the courtroom, where every detail of Liam's carefully constructed lie was dismantled piece by piece. The prosecution presented the timeline in a way that left no room for escape. They walked the jury through every hour, every step, and every mistake Liam made. From the moment Emily arrived at his house to the moment paramedics found her lifeless body on the floor, the sequence was clear. Liam had poisoned her, spent the afternoon watching her slowly deteriorate, and pretended to be the heartbroken boyfriend when in reality, he had orchestrated her death with precision. The prosecutors emphasized the deliberate choices Liam had made. He had selected a slow-acting poison that would not raise immediate suspicion. He had ensured that Emily's drink, and only her drink, was contaminated. He had chosen to leave the house to buy items to dispose of evidence, believing the timeline would make him look innocent. He had destroyed documents, but not completely enough to hide his tracks. And most importantly, he had positioned himself as the sole beneficiary of a life insurance policy that was suddenly very convenient. Liam's defense team did their best to cast doubt on the timeline, suggesting that Emily could have accidentally ingested the poison from an unknown source. They argued that the trash bag found in the dumpster might not have been Liam's. They argued that the trash bag found in the dumpster suspect that the trash bag found in the dumpster might not have been Liam's, questioned the reliability of the surveillance footage, and insisted that his secret relationship, while morally wrong, did not prove murder. But their arguments could not explain away the layers of physical and digital evidence that pointed directly to Liam. The jury listened to the testimonies, reviewed the photos, studied the timelines, and watched the footage of Liam's movements. On that day, they saw the gaps in his story, the lies about where he went, and the undeniable connection between his actions and Emily's death. Liam never testified in his own defense, choosing to remain silent throughout the proceedings. His silence left the courtroom cold, his lack of explanation painting an even darker picture. Emily's family sat through every painful moment of the trial, listening to the horrific details of how Liam spent 6 hours with her as she unknowingly slipped closer to death. For them, the worst part was realizing that Emily never saw it coming. She had trusted Liam completely. She had signed insurance papers believing they were simply precautions. She had spent her final day happily, unaware that the person sitting across from her was waiting for her to die. The most chilling evidence came from the forensic breakdown of the digital trail Liam had left behind. His search history, carefully deleted but later recovered, showed that he had studied how to remove traces of poison from a crime scene. He had looked up how long certain substances would stay in a person's system and which poisons would appear, like natural causes in early medical examinations. He had even read advice from criminals who had tried and failed to carry out similar acts. These searches proved that Liam had not just stumbled into this crime. He had spent months learning how to get away with it. When the prosecution revealed the final piece of evidence, a small, overlooked delivery confirmation email tied directly to Liam's account, it became the final nail in the coffin. The email confirmed the delivery of the poison to his house. Liam's careful planning, which had seemed so calculated, had one tiny oversight that sealed his fate. He had forgotten to delete that single email. That one detail linked him directly to the weapon he used to kill Emily. The jury reached their verdict swiftly. After hearing weeks of evidence, they found Liam guilty of first-degree murder. The sentence was life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge described Liam's crime as cold, heartless, and premeditated to a terrifying degree. He highlighted Liam's ability to sit calmly with Emily for hours, watching as the poison slowly destroyed her from the inside, knowing full well that her death would solve all his problems. Liam showed little emotion as the sentence was read. He remained expressionless, as if the weight of his actions had never fully registered. His calm, distant demeanor unsettled everyone in the courtroom. Emily's family, though relieved to see justice served, would never find full closure. The pain of losing their daughter in such a calculated and cruel way would stay with them forever. The story gained national attention. News channels covered the case, highlighting how Liam's patience and attention to detail nearly allowed him to commit the perfect crime. The public was horrified by the idea that someone could sit so close to the person they claimed to love and still go through with such a brutal plan. The case became a haunting reminder that evil can sometimes wear the face of someone familiar. Investigators later reflected that it was the smallest things that ultimately solved the case. The burnt documents that weren't completely destroyed, the security footage from a distant street, the delivery email Liam forgot to erase, the fingerprints on the glass. Each piece alone might have been dismissed, but together they told the Full story. Liam had tried to control every part of the narrative, but he underestimated the value of minor details. It was those details that brought him down. The life insurance money Liam had carefully pursued was never paid out. Emily's family fought the claim and ensured that he would never benefit from her death. Her friends and family later established a scholarship fund in her name to honor her memory and help other students pursue their dreams, something Emily had always cared about. In the end, Liam's plan, which he had thought was flawless, crumbled under the weight of truth. He had spent 6 hours with Emily, not as her loving partner, but as the quiet architect of her final moments. He sat with her, smiled with her, and waited for the poison to work, believing he would soon be free. But freedom never came. Instead, he now spends his life behind bars, trapped by the same patience and calculation he once thought would set him free. Emily's story became a powerful warning. Sometimes the greatest threat comes from the person sitting right beside you.